amateur showground in Harrogate is more used to showing heavy horses than heavy horsepower. Last summer, it was home to the creme de la creme of motorcycling events, Britain's largest ever gathering of Honda Goldwings and their proud owners.
This Grand Tour of Harrogate is the highlight of this 4-day jamboree for Goldwing owners. But I mustn't call it that because this is a treffen, and you may or may not know that that is German for a meeting of friends. Now, with all this exotica here, I wasn't really quite sure which machine to climb aboard. Nothing but the best for Top Gear, because as you can see, I've got 3 wheels on my wagon, and this is one of the first of this type exported to Europe.
In fact, everything's on a big scale at this, the 12th National Treffen, organised by the Goldwing Owners Club of Great Britain. There are over 1,000 bikes, worth some 8 million quid, and characters drawn from all walks of life. Many are somewhat mature, drawn back by this grand form of motorcycling after years out of the saddle.
The Honda Goldwing became the fastest and grandest Grand Tourer, a sort of luxury liner of the two-wheel world. It all started in 1972 when the idea was hatched in the fertile minds of some Japanese engineers in the southern town of Waco. And talking of Waco, there are 1 or 2 wacky things here, I can tell you. Mick, you've been around a bit.
Yes, all these places that we've been. With a bike like this, you've got to be able to use it. And a big bike like this, you can travel in comfort. At my age, I want to be able to do 300 or 400 miles a day. And this is a bike to do it with.
What would this whole outfit be worth?
I should think as a rough estimate over £19,000 now, with the trailer and all the extra work on it and all the what we call goodies.
And what about you with your decorated shirt and things?
Well, it's all part of the club scene. You know, we all like to dress up. You know, all Goldwingers really are posers at heart.
The Wing first hit the showrooms in 1975 as the svelte, bare-chested GL1000. But in no time, it sprouted accessories and the fully dressed tourer appeared, the Aspencade, gold knobs and all. And manufacturing was transferred to the ideal home of this interstate cruiser, Maryland in the United States. Of course, a big bike needs a big engine, and the Wing's engine just gets bigger and bigger as the technological wizardry gets more and more sophisticated.
This is the most recent Goldwing GL1500, and it's got everything on it except the kitchen sink. It's got a 1520cc flat 6-cylinder engine. It's also got its own adjustable suspension activated by this onboard computer, so it can go up and down depending upon the weight of your pillion passenger or the road surface. It's got fully integrated disc brakes, 2 on the front and 1 on the rear. It's got a super-duper radio cassette system with the volume controlled by a computer on the speedometer. It's got electronic cruise control, it's got a heater, and it's got illuminated hand switches. In fact, I wouldn't mind half of these things on my car.
And to avoid those hernias pushing it round the car park, you can select reverse.
How often do you use reverse gear?
Not very often. With your legs being so long, you don't really need it, but it gets you out of trouble.
It must be very cumbersome riding a thing of this size.
No, it's not that bad. The centre of gravity is very low, so it keeps it upright, very balanced.
So you don't fall over too often?
No.
Why do you ride a bike like this?
Well, I used to have a sports bike, but I kept getting stopped for speeding, so I thought it was time to change.
I see.
Every Goldwing's an expression of the rider's personality, like a front room on wheels. Owners vie with each other to enhance their bikes. Depending on what you want, you could lash out anything from 2 to 10,000 on a radio here, a potted plant there. In fact, everything's available from rain covers to trailers, from tents to exotic paint.
Thousands of items, you know, for all the range of Goldwings. You know, you've got light bars, you've got mud flaps, you've got crazy eagles that go on front fenders. Then you've got the bizarre, like a bike boy holder, which holds a can of drink on the handlebars. So, you know, it just goes on, everything.
Why do people buy these accessories?
Well, they make the bikes a bit more comfortable, and they compete with each other for the looks of them.
The The Goldwing movement goes from strength to strength, with local events called wingdings as well as treffens. But they've still got to go some to match the sheer glamour of Harley-Davidson's factory-supported hog rallies. And as the highly individualistic Harley riders say, they'd rather eat worms than ride a Honda.
Ah, hello, Fred. You're the chairman of the Goldwing Owners Club of Great Britain. How's the movement grown over here?
Oh, it's fantastic. I've been chairman now for 5 years, and it's trebled in size in that 5 years. Since it was formed in 1980 with 300 and so members, we're now approaching 3,000 members in the UK, something like 14,000 in the European Federation, and with our friends in America, it could be up to 80,000. It's an incredible movement.
Biking's comfort-conscious brothers and sisters came to Harrogate from as far afield as Belgium, Holland, Germany and Switzerland. A few even came from the States. It was a relaxing weekend and they needed it. After a long ride, it wouldn't be long before they'd travel up again and take on another treffen in another town somewhere in Europe.
There are old cars and old cars. Some simply expire, giving up the unequal struggle. They pass the way of all flesh, reduced to their component parts, and are melted down to make new ones. Others, the non-mass-produced variety, better built and more prestigious, are less perishable, less vulnerable to the ravages of time. Their breeding spares them from such an ignominious fate. But there are a handful that last longer than most. And this little beastie happens to be one of them. No matter what you think about its styling, the Daimler Dart or SP250, to give it its proper title, makes a seriously sensible old car. What gives the Dart its longevity and high survival rate is its fiberglass body, which means zero rust. There's a massive fourth road bridge chassis and a turbine-like V8 engine capable of up to 30 miles per gallon. In other words, it's as tough as Doc Martens with piffling ownership and restoration costs. But the main reason for buying a Daimler Dart sounds like this. The 2.5 V8 Edward Turner designed power unit is the Dart's tour de force and an absolute Lulu. If anything, it's too fast for the rest of the car. Launched in 1959 at the New York Motor Show, the Dart was aimed at the lucrative American sports car market, hence those fashionable transatlantic sins. Dodge had already trademarked the name Dart, so Daimler had to climb down and call it the SP250 instead. If the Daimler Dart has a claim to fame, it's the car that sunk Daimler. The car-crazy Americans weren't impressed, and only 2,400 found enlightened owners. The SP250 was desperately outgunned by the likes of the Big Healy and the Jaguar E-Type. In 1960, Jaguar bought out the ailing Daimler company and axed the sportiest car that Daimler had ever built in 1964. But for you and me, those low production numbers are good news because they make the Dart rare and separate. Most of the cars went to America, so there can't be more than a few hundred left in the UK. When's the last time you saw one? And it's because they come onto the market so infrequently that prices have always been buoyant. In fact, the Daimler Dart is one of the few classics that hasn't slumped in value. But they are still affordable. Only last month I watched a perfectly respectable, taxed and tested Dart make £4,500 at a classic car auction. In the boom, darts like this would make £16,000–17,000. Now they're down to around 11 or 12. So what about the spares situation on a car that's been out of production for 30 years? Are all those twiddly chrome bits still available?
Well, there's no problem on the parts. Nobody need to be scared of buying a Daimler Dart. Parts availability is as good as it was back in 1964. There's probably only 2 or 3 things we haven't got, but we could always find a very good second-hand part. As parts have become obsolete, we've remanufactured them, and John's here making petrol tanks at the moment, and we make the sills. That's really the only part of them that rots. We make the grille surround, the mesh, the V, the rear lamp surrounds. We make the chrome that goes on top of the doors and the window guides. We make a lot of the pretty chrome parts. We do the exhaust system, which is about £130, and that's not dear because a modern car would cost probably more than that. A set of hoses to keep the car going, that's only about £30. Exchange water pumps, radiators, discs, pads for the brakes, they're in about £15. Discs are £30. So nothing is that expensive. The idea is to keep the car on the road.
But what's it like to drive? From its Stone Age cart spring suspension, heavy worm and peg steering, to a body that flexes on fast corners, the Dart is mechanically prehistoric. But it's exactly that splendid vintage feel which makes it such an enjoyable and hairy handful.
When I first saw the Dart at the 1959 motor show, I fell in love with it then. I thought it was wonderful, the shape of it, the 2+2 seating, and in 1964, when I could afford to buy one, I went out and got it. I loved the big V8 engine, the wind-up windows, the fiberglass bodies that didn't rust, and the big chassis, and the whole car was just wonderful.
But watch the handling. Treat the loud pedal roughly, and the back end will soon be overtaking the front. It's at this point I must come clean. I must make my confession. It's hard for me to be detached, to be objective about Daimler Darts, because I've owned one since 1976. I'll never sell it. I'll be buried in it. To me, Daimler Darts are like Catherine Deneuve dipped in chocolate sauce. So if you want an old, mad car to keep forever, then this is it. A slip of the designer's pencil, a drastic plastic roller skate. The Dart may look a lot like the man from Atlantis, but I guarantee that you'll feel better at the end of your journey than when you started. And when it comes to classic cars, surely that's what it's all about.
Next week, Janet Trewin on the dangers of being a dozy driver. Jeremy Clarkson testing Jeep's Cherokee and Ford's Explorer. And Tiffany Dell tries the leading contenders in the British Touring Car Championship.